Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. So now I'd like to bring on my co-host who is the Buffalo to my Bills, the New York to my Mets, and the New York to my sports, and basically everything in the sports world. So please welcome everybody, Mr. Joe Delio.
How's it going?
It's good, Joe. How you doing? Would you like that introduction?
You know what? You're always giving excellent introductions, and I very much appreciate that. Yes, I loved it.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that my co-host likes my introductions, and
Yeah.
it's always a good thing to hear positive feedback like that.
I mean, who
Please,
wouldn't like an introduction
please
like that?
feel free to say if I'm ever doing it wrong. Please feel free to do so. But I'm glad you like them.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, you ready to talk some Bills football?
I am. I'm just pumped about the fact that, we're not talking about practices anymore. We're not talking about training camps. We're not talking about preseason games. We're talking about the real deal now. So here's where it gets exciting. And so, yes, I am extra excited to talk some Bills, talk some football tonight.
Awesome. I am too. So it's the big one on Monday night against the Jets, which luckily, if you're a Spectrum customer like I am, I can still watch it on ABC since Spectrum pulled the plug on ESPN from Disney. But I'll save that for another day. So let's get into some Bills talk. So as of recently, I could see that the Bills signed some new players, including big offensive tackle Jermaine Afedi, quarterback Shane Buechele, and linebacker Christian Kirksey to the practice squad. So what do you think these guys can bring to the team and hopefully contribute to this season if needed?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I don't really see making that much of a difference. But there's one that kind of that kind of stands out a little bit that I think, we may see on the field in games here. Now, again, I'm not going to argue with the pickups. I think they're all, good pickups. Probably paid almost nothing, for them. Backup quarterback, backing up Mahomes, backing up Allen. I still don't think the Bills are at a spot where if something happens to Josh Allen, they have somebody that, is very capable. Last couple of years, they've had quarterbacks where I would think, if Josh Allen goes down for a long time or God forbid the rest of the season or something like that, the season wouldn't be done. You had Trubisky who's capable. You had Case Keenum who's definitely capable. Not Josh Allen, capable, but still, I feel like I felt a little more confident there. Kyle Allen, again, good, but would he really be what the Bills needed? And again, in case, that circumstance where Josh Allen was gone for a while, and the same with this pickup here. I don't really see. I don't feel insured, I guess, if something bad was to happen. As far as the linemen there, the offensive linemen, again, just nothing special compared to what they already have, in my opinion. And again, I might be wrong about this, but, I at this point, I don't see it. The linebacker they picked up, though, I've looked at his, some of his stats and, coming from Cleveland, I believe, right?
Actually, was his last stop was with the Houston Texans, but yeah, he did play at Cleveland and was teammates with Jordan Poyer. So at the time,
right. And again, he had some, recent, good seasons with Houston. I was looking at some of the stats and, averaging about 5 tackles a game, and making contributions, to the Texans. So the Bills could use all the help they can get at middle linebacker. And I would not be surprised to see him on the field at some point, unless some of the other guys that have been in there step up a little bit. But, practice squad is a good place to start. And he's the one that I would say, again, I'm just guessing here, would be the most likely to, see the field in a real game.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I respectfully disagree with the backup quarterback take, because here's why. I think Kyle Allen, I think he's actually an upgrade from Case Keenum, because the one thing you had to do with last year's offense is if Josh Allen got hurt, you had to change the offense up a lot, because Keenum wasn't a running quarterback. He was just a pocket quarterback. But at least with Kyle Allen and Shane Buechele, they do have RPO running abilities, even though they're not as big as Josh Allen. So you don't really have to change up your offensive scheme in terms of running that. But that's where two opinions can collide, and that's the beauty of this podcast. We can agree to disagree, and that's how life should be. So, and I do like that Kirksey linebacker, but we got a little bit of a problem on our hands, Joe. He happened to be teammates with both Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. And I like to joke that Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are like the best friends on the team. So what's going to have to give there, you think, as a joke? Because Christian Kirksey's was teammates with both of them, and there's already a friendship going on with Hyde and Poyer.
Yeah, there's certainly room for another one, if he's going to make contributions, so not a problem there. And, by the way, this show would be boring if we agreed on everything, so I certainly don't mind disagreeing on a few things here. I hope you're right about, two things. Two things I hope for. One is that you're right about Kyle Allen. But the other thing that I hope for is we never find out, because Josh Allen, plays all the games and takes the Bills far. So, we'll see what happens with that.
Exactly. So now let's go the other way with the Bills trade to the New York Giants with edge rusher Boogie Basham. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He's a member of the Giants now, and specifically the trade was we traded him to the Giants, and we gave up a 7th round pick to them, and we got their 6th round pick in 2025. So what do you think? Because I think that was a surprise trade that nobody saw coming, because Boogie Basham was in line to get a lot of playing time. And the only other reason I could say is more draft picks. Keep piling up on draft picks for next year, because they already got 10. But obviously, it looks like Bean and Co. probably have something in place by collecting extra picks like this for not only 2024, but for 2025. So what are your thoughts on the whole Boogie Basham trade situation?
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. I didn't see that coming. I don't have a problem with it. The person I feel best for Boogie Basham, because I think he's going to get more playing time with the Giants than he would have gotten with the Bills. Up at defensive line, I mean, the Bills have a little bit more depth there, I believe. I mean, he had an amazing preseason and was definitely earning himself some time on the field, but I'm not so sure he would have got the time on the field that he deserved with the Bills. And I feel like with the Giants, he will. And he can make a difference for that defense. And I think this work, as sure as I'm sure he would have liked to stay with the Bills, but that's a good move for him. And I think it's going to benefit him, and he's going to get that playing time that he deserves. And maybe just more than just Bills fans will notice what he can do on the field.
Extra playing time, and he does reunite with former Bills brass in head coach Brian Dable and GM Joe Shane. So the connection and the familiarity is there also with the playing time.
Exactly. So both of them will benefit, I believe. And again, with the Bills, it certainly doesn't hurt to get some extra draft picks there.
Exactly. Now it's time to move on to our question of the week segment. Joe, are you ready to hopefully start a new streak going this week? I hope you came prepared.
I got last week's question right, so I'm going for 2 in a row here.
Okay, let's do this, Joe. Here's your question of the week. Who do you think this recently retired quarterback that played on two teams, had 571 passing yards, and played in 13 Pro Bowls? Is it Brett Favre, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Drew Brees? Again, who do you think this recently retired quarterback who played on two different squads, passed for 571 touchdowns, and played in 13 Pro Bowls? Is it Brett Favre, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Drew Brees?
Ooh. Okay, I have to do this by process of elimination. Drew Brees, I think only played on one team. I might be wrong about that. Brett Favre played on more than two. Peyton Manning, I believe, played. I know Tom Brady played on two teams. And Peyton Manning, I believe, played on two as well. 13 Pro Bowl. Okay. You know what? I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to go Tom Brady.
Nope. The correct answer was Drew Brees.
Oh.
But good guess, though. But anyway, we just received a comment from Bush1G saying, "Hey, what's up, G?" And I got to respond back with the famous Dave Chappelle Super Bowl commercial. "What's up, Bush1G?"
We welcome all comments.
Yes, we do. Because we don't censor any comments on here. They're all welcome here.
That's right.
Anyway, so last weekend we discussed teams that were facing make or break seasons. The NFL doesn't wait for anyone as it moves very fast. Here are some players that I'd like to hear your thoughts on taking their next steps in a make or break season, Joe. So, first, the Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson. Joe, do you think that Russell Wilson is in a make or break year this year?
Definitely is in a make or break year, especially after the disaster that was last season. So yes, definitely, make or break.
Okay, so we have Russell Wilson is a make or break. Moving on to next one, defensive tackle Ed Oliver with the Bills. He's fresh off that new contract, and he's ready to probably look good in this new Sean McDermott pass rush heavy scheme. So what do you think? Ed Oliver, make or break season or not?
Yes, again, I think definitely make or break because, a lot is expected of Oliver being, the high draft pick. He started slow, made some strides, started slow in other seasons, then got stronger as the season went on. 2021 looked like to be the breakout year. And then I feel like 2022, although there were some bright moments, again, that consistency that we're looking for, I didn't feel like was there. So I think definitely, as even more so than Russell Wilson, I think definitely a make or break for Oliver, because it's like, how much patience can you have? Let's see this guy make some consistent, game-changing contributions again, which happens sometimes, but I think they need to happen on a much more consistent basis.
Well, they were certainly patient with him in his rookie year deal, giving him that contract extension. So obviously, they know he could play, and with this more aggressive pass rush heavy scheme, I think he'll thrive in it because that's what he does best, is sacking the quarterback. So now, lastly, I'd like to talk about another defensive lineman, but this time we're going to go all the way to DC with the Washington Commanders. Defensive end Chase Young with only 1.5 sacks in the last two seasons, and injuries setting him back. It's now or never for him to step up his final game. What are your thoughts, Joe? Make or break season for Chase Young?
Yeah, this is a guy I feel really sorry for because he had so much promise and started off really well. and then had a horrible knee injury that could have potentially ended his career, and he just hasn't been the same since then. Just missing time, and even he got the injury the one season, and it took him 3/4 of the next season to get back in, just because of the recovery time and surgery complications and things like that took a little bit longer recovery time. So I do feel bad for him. This is definitely a make or break year for him as well. I'm not as optimistic for him as I am for the other two, just because, again, it's so hard to come back from major injuries like that. And I'd love to see it happen, but I'm not so sure it will. But certainly, if he can't come back from that, then that could be the break. If he does, obviously, that could be a little career renaissance there. But as much as I'd love to see that, I don't see it happening. I'll add this. Out of those three you mentioned, I think the one, actually, two of the first two we mentioned, I like what you said about Oliver and the new defensive scheme. I think that'll help him a lot, and that'll help him gain that consistency a little bit. A lot of people might disagree with me here, but as far as Russell Wilson is concerned, I just think he's got too much pride in what he's done in this league to just go out like things happened last year. I really think he's going to have an excellent comeback year this year. Maybe not like the old Super Bowl Russell Wilson, but I think we'll see a different quarterback this year, and I think he'll help the Broncos a lot more than he'll hurt them. So, I could certainly see him having a very good turnaround this year.
And if there's one coach that's a quarterback whisperer in his heyday with the Saints and Drew Brees, it's definitely Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some three that I would like to talk about and give my opinions about
Sure.
make or break. As we mentioned, Chase Young, I agree with you on that. It's definitely a make or break season for him because he could have had his career ended with a terrible knee injury. He showed a lot of promise his rookie year and kind of hasn't been the same player. I mean, he's had okay moments. He's been able to stay on the field, but he's got to get back to being primetime Chase Young. Hopefully that'll happen this year. If not, they're going to have to, make some tough calls in the offseason with him. Brock Purdy, I don't really think it is a make or break because, like I said, the guy got thrusted in last year, wasn't even supposed to be the quarterback after Trey Lance initially won the job, but was able to capitalize off of Trey Lance. Trey Lance. Sorry. Thank you. My mind went blank there. Trey Lance's injury. And again, you never want to see a guy who initially won the starting quarterback job get hurt, but that's how it happens. And now he's with the Cowboys and Brock Purdy's the guy. So no, I think this is his second year to just run the offense again. I think Christian McCaffrey has more of a make or break year with Brock Purdy as the quarterback because of his hefty payday he got for a running back that you don't see a lot of GMs pay with running backs anymore. So, right. Yeah, no, I don't think it's a make or break for Brock Purdy. And lastly, I'm going to say Isaiah Simmons, safety / linebacker, is a make or break year with the Giants because he's joining a very talented defensive front that's already being led by Boogie Basham after we traded him to the Giants. And this is a guy that was drafted out of Arizona, ran like a 4.39 for a linebacker, which is incredibly fast. And he just, unfortunately, the way that the Cardinals were run, it's just, he wasn't going to stay on a team that's now rebuilding. And now he's going to a team that is, at least in my view, ready to win more games than the Cardinals. So yeah, this is, I think, a make or break season for Isaiah Young. So let's review. I have Chase Young and Isaiah Simmons make or break. I do not have make or break for Brock Purdy. I think the make or break in that one is really Christian McCaffrey. So moving on. So see right here. Hold on. So yeah, with only 2 days left until the NFL season begins, I thought that it might be uh, time or fun to pick some matchups for the upcoming Super Bowl. What do you think about these possible Super Bowl matchups, Joe? Get ready because I got some zingers in here. Number one, I have a blast from the past, from the night a rematch of the two Super Bowls in the 1990s, and you know where I'm going with this. I'm predicting the Bills and the Cowboys have a Super Bowl rematch in this decade. What do you think about that? If they had a remake of a rematch of the glory days.
I think that matchup is highly likely, to be honest with you. I mean, you got two teams that are, they might not be the favorites in their conferences to make it to the Super Bowl, but, they're definitely on the short list of teams that can get there. And I would not be surprised at all to see, those teams matching up in the Super Bowl. The Bills have an excellent shot. Cowboys have an excellent shot. Would not be surprised at all to see that. As Bills fans, of course, we don't want the same results as we saw in the 90s.
No, we don't, and especially in my household, we'll have to be in separate rooms if that Super Bowl happens.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wild stories I could tell you about that, but we don't have time because there's a lot to get to on this podcast. But anyway, my second one is the rematch of last year's Super Bowl, Kansas City and Philadelphia. Do you think this is a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility. I think, according to my crystal ball here, the Chiefs have a more likely chance to get to the Super Bowl than the Eagles. I think the Eagles step back a little bit, still a playoff team, still a high quality team, still certainly a team that can get to the Super Bowl. So would it shock me to see these two teams playing each other again? No. But based, on the two that we've mentioned so far, I think we have more of a chance of seeing a Bills-Cowboys Super Bowl than we would a Chiefs-Eagles.
Okay, and my third one, this is a wild one that I don't think that just came out of the blue, that like nobody is even thinking about that this could be a Super Bowl matchup. It's the New York Jets and the Green Bay Packers. And now the only reason why they brought that up is because it would be Aaron Rodgers going up against his former team in Green Bay. And that would make a lot of headlines and social media posts and a lot of headway on podcasts, especially and on CBS Sports, as CBS is hosting the Super Bowl this year on TV, is broadcasting it.
Right. I don't see a likelihood of that happening, but I mean, it would be, pretty magical. Now, if we have time, I came up with three that I'm going to question you about because I thought about these. And
absolutely, sure. Go ahead.
You were talking about the Cowboys and the Bills and how they've played each other twice in the Super Bowl. I thought of two other teams that have played each other twice in the Super Bowl over history. And I don't know, I see this as a possibility. How about the 49ers and the Bengals?
Yes, I do see that as a possibility because it actually almost happened in 2022 when the Bengals beat the Chiefs and all the 49ers had to do was beat the Rams, and we would have gotten that in 2022. So, it could possibly happen since it didn't happen just 2 years ago in that season. So I agree with you on that. That is a possibility.
Okay. And this one, not as strong a possibility, I thought. But again, these two teams played in the Super Bowl in the mid-90s. In fact, I think it might have been the one after the Bills and Cowboys played each other a couple of times. I was thinking the 49ers, and a team that I've said in prior podcasts I could see getting hot at the end, making a playoff run. The Los Angeles Chargers against the 49ers. What's the possibility of that one happening?
Wow, you threw a wild card in there, that one. Nothing like throwing a little wild card and a little zinger.
Wait till the next one.
A little smoke screen there. I like that. It could be a possibility. I mean, the way the NFL is now and the way these playoffs are now, where you have super wild card weekend, it's crazy because a lot of these teams could go on the road and pull off upsets, especially with the way they with a lot of teams starting to realize that how do you beat the Chiefs and how do you finally beat the Bills? You try to blitz Allen and Mahomes and make them just regular quarterbacks. And I know that's hard to do, but you're starting to see that all around the league, not just the Bills doing a blitzing pass rushing type of scheme, but even in the preseason, you saw a lot more blitzing than you've had in the past 2 years in this league in the preseason, more exotic fronts. So that's a trend that looks like is coming back this season.
That's true. Now, you were talking about zingers. I got one. This is kind of in line with your Jets-Packers Super Bowl. I don't think this one's going to happen. In fact, I know it's not going to happen. But everybody's on the Detroit Lions bandwagon here, right? So let's say you have a classic Super Bowl of two classic NFL teams that have never made a Super Bowl. How about the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns?
For the old, I think that probably wouldn't be the most watched Super Bowl like last year. But if you went by demographic, I bet you like the football fans that are like 50 to 65, the ratings would actually like go up in that demographic, but not for the young viewers, because a lot of the old timers remember when the Lions and the Browns were like the king of the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference years before the Super Bowl. So I think a lot of old timers would like to see that Super Bowl, but young people like me want to obviously see the Bills and the Cowboys, or the Chargers and some of the classic Super Bowls that did happen, as opposed to never happening.
Yeah, no offense I to anybody watching here, but I think you said 55, 65 range. I'm thinking it's more 75, 85 range for those teams. But just like I said, I don't see that Super Bowl happening, but I thought about it. I said, you know what? I got to throw it out there. And, again, especially for all those people that are high, that are on that. I said in a previous podcast that the Lions won't even make the playoffs. And I hope I'm wrong about that because I'd like to see it. But, just to throw it out there, one of those classic NFL, neither one's made the Super Bowl in the 57 that they've had. So that would be crazy if it did happen.
But hey, guess what? Our podcast is for all people of all ages. So guess what? You know what they always say? We do it for our elderly people. And we take care of our elderly people. So that was a good prediction there to take care of that target audience of our podcast and for football. So yeah, that's what we pride ourselves here at Defiant Takes. We make sure that our podcast reaches all demographics of fans of all ages and everything. Definitely. So anyway, we're gonna move on. So the Bills will be taking on the New York Jets at the Meadowlands in New Jersey on Monday Night Football this week. Let's all give our predictions and scores on who will win. So, Joe, do you want to go first?
Okay. When we went through, our predictions a couple of weeks ago, we did the game by game. I said that, that the Bills would win this game, and I still feel that way. It's going to be close. I came up with a score. Bills 23, Jets 21. The Bills scored 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals, and close game, back and forth. Both teams play well, but I see 23-21 Bills.
I agree with you on that. I think this is going to be a thriller Monday Night Football game that could already set the bar high in terms of ratings, because you got the Bills, who are expected to win the Super Bowl this year in a Super Bowl or bust year, and the Jets, who are the young up and coming team that now have a popular quarterback in Aaron Rodgers that'll bring them ratings. So yeah, I think this game's going to come down to who's going to be able to pass the ball well, but I also think it's going to be who's going to control the clock better. And I think in this case, in the shootout, the Bills happened to control the clock better against the Jets because they're the better team. So I got the Bills beating the Jets. I'm going to say I got 26-19.
Okay. I could see it within that range. And yeah, the Bills have something called a running game, it looks like. So that would certainly help control the clock, that you like you're talking about there. So, put together, guys like Cook, and Harris and even possibly Murray. I think these guys can make a difference in the running game, and especially with leads, to control that clock, as you were mentioning.
Exactly. Kind of like what Alabama, New England, you saw, kind of like what Alabama was doing years before they put the running clock in college football. And as you saw an example last night. That's what Duke was able to do against Clemson. They took advantage of shrinking the game with the clock rules, and they were able to just keep letting that clock run, and just every second the clock ran after they got a first down, it was just taking more offensive possessions away from Clemson, and their defense played well. So if the Bills can kind of follow that format, it should be a good night for the Bills, and hopefully a Bills victory celebration, victory Tuesday this week instead of their victory Monday. So yeah, now that the NFL now the NFL released, they just released, in fact, today, the rules stating the third quarterback rule. And I thought that I could just go over the basic rules to catch everybody up. Okay, so here's the rule that the NFL released on the third quarterback change at the head of the 2023 season. So the first key point is players who play positions other than quarterback are not permitted to serve as an emergency third string quarterback. So what that means is if the San Francisco 49ers are getting blown out in the playoffs again, you will not see Christian McCaffrey or any other or a wide receiver there like Deebo Samuel playing quarterback should all their quarterbacks get hurt. And now another rule is emergency third string quarterbacks can participate in warmups. So that means for if you see the Bills, that's good news for Shane Buechele, who was obviously signed off the practice squad, and he would have been warming up anyway, even if Matt Barkley didn't get hurt because of that rule, but he's going to have to warm up now being the practice squad guy. So that's a good rule to see, that practice squad players can warm up with the regular team. The practice squad quarterback can warm up with the regulars so that they're actually ready to go should they have to step in. So, and then the third key bullet, if either a team's top two quarterbacks are cleared to return to a game, they'll be allowed to do so, replacing the third stringer. So that means, which I think that's not really I don't think that's really a change. I think they were allowed to do that before. That's just to clarify what they can or can't do. And then emergency third string quarterbacks cannot enter a game due to a team benching either of its top two quarterbacks for poor play. So if your top two quarterbacks get benched for poor play, that means you're done basically.
Right.
I think it means you probably have to forfeit because you can't play any other players at your quarterback. So that probably could result in a forfeit. We don't know. It doesn't say that, but that's what could happen. If hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But
so you can't bring in the third quarterback because your first two guys stink.
Yeah, which that's the only caveat to otherwise a great rule they brought back. And lastly, this is the key bullet. This is what the NFL's really been emphasizing. You see this in college a lot too, with a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. So an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty will be assessed if a team violates any of the stipulations laid out by the league. So, Joe, which rule do you think sticks out to you out of all of these?
I wonder if this was brought on by what happened with the 49ers in last year's playoffs. you know,
It exactly was, actually. That's why Goodell specifically changed these rules because of that.
okay. And I agree with that. I mean, a situation like this is extremely rare. I mean, how many times have we seen it in regular season games, never mind playoff games? But why not? You know, why I agree with making these guys available. You know, if anything, you know, a third string quarterback, like you said, gets to practice with the team and get some, you know, experience with that. Again, it's extremely rare that something like this would happen, but you know, why not make rules like this just to have that assurance that you can have somebody like that, you know, come in and you know, if a team has two quarterbacks that are having off games, you know, I mean, what are you going to do anyway? You know, it's they hand the ball off, punt it away, whatever. But I think it's a good rule, you know, and just again have these guys available just in case, and you know, again, let them hang out with the team and be a part of that as well.
Exactly. And I agree with that too, Joe. And here's actually something that I want to address the audience that they don't know. This actually was a prior rule before Roger Goodell decided in 2011 to take it out. So it's actually um, a reinstallment of a rule that used to be where you could do the emergency third string quarterback. And then that was taken out. And then Goodell finally realized that we need to bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
After this happened. So I don't know if you knew that this was actually a rule prior. I mean, when like in the early 2000s or the late 90s, you could do this though too.
I'll be honest with you. I thought, I shouldn't say I knew. I thought that was the rule. I never knew it got changed. So, you know, I never knew they made any changes, that Goodell, you know, made the changes to it. But again, I think it's the best course of action just to have that insurance, just in case something, in the rare case that it does, but just in case it does, you know, you have options there. So I like
Right,
it. I think
right.
that's
We could sit here and be a typical Debbie Downer and be like, oh, this rule should have never gotten taken out of and blah 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 and everything. But we don't do that on this podcast. We take the high road and talk about good, fun things on this podcast and how it's going to help the NFL. So,
that's right.
yeah. Anyway, it looks like we are all out of time, folks. We're coming to the end. So, Joe, where can we find you in this era of social media world in 2023?
I am on my handle is Joe Dell Sports on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, and you know, I post mostly Bill stuff these days, but some baseball, basketball, hockey coming up. Can't wait for that. So I'll have some stuff going on there as well. Even Premier League stuff I put on there. Anything you want, you'll find at Joe Dell Sports on Twitter X.
I like that. You're multifaceted like me with sports and things like that, and I think that's awesome to know. I got a co-host who is like that in terms of how I think with sports too, and how we both think. So,
Definitely.
anyway, before I go on any more incoherent rambling here, you can find yours truly, Jamie Malloy, at Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, whatever your pleasure is. And also, you can find me on DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And I'm also writing for FanBuzz.com about G5 college football, which is very fun too. So thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, the season is 6 days away. And no matter what the pundits say, no matter what anybody else says, people are always going to talk, whether if you do bad or good. Life's too short. But remember this one important thing. And Chris Berman always said it back in the 90s, and I'm going to say it here again. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We'll see you next time, guys.
All right. Good night.
2, 1.